final showdown for a spot into the season end final in Toronto. A scintillating lineup, and we kick off with the iconic rivalry as one more time Magnus Carlsen takes on Hikaru Nakamura. And I'm going to put our in-house grandmasters on the spot. Simon, what are your predictions?
Has to be Magnus, the best player of all time. He's going to take him down.
I'm going to disagree. I think it's Hikaru Nakamura's time, 6-time speed chess champion, more Twitch followers than Magnus, and he always does it for the fans. It's his chance.
What are you talking about, Dave? I thought you were Magnus's friend as well. What is this? Why are you going for Hikaru?
Guys, it is the Beast versus the final boss. Welcome to the AI Cup.
Magnus Carlsen's going to mop up everything. He's going to take everything with check.
Oh my goodness, that's a move for you right there.
I think this is the craziest position I think we've seen on the tour this season. He might...
Oh my god! A 1-move checkmate.
This is a killer blow.
Oh my god.
Oh, he's enjoying himself a bit too much here, isn't he?
We see a reaction. Magnus is mouse slipped.
Oh no! Magnus mouse slipped. I got 2 seconds. Oh my god! What an Armageddon!
He's so good. He's so good at thinking on the fly.
It's over.
Magnus Carlsen, he takes it after an exciting final match here.
We're ready and so excited to welcome you back from our studio in Oslo with just 1 seat remaining at the Toronto Finals. It is going to be a fiery week of chess, and to make sure that you're on top of every single move in the studio, Grandmaster David Howell and Ginger GM Simon Williams. Simon, what are you most excited about this week?
Well, it has to be Hikaru and Magnus. I mean, 2 of the greatest players of all time, 2 of the greatest players of the moment, and they're facing off against each other. So we've got to be really excited about that matchup. And who's going to win? I mean, predictions will come a bit later, right?
But they came a bit earlier, actually.
I mean, how can he go for Hikaru over his good buddy Magnus Carlsen? You feeling all right, Dave?
They take it in turns. They seem to beat each other every time. So Magnus got the last one. I think Hikaru might have revenge this time.
But David, you've been calling the action from the start, and now with just 1 spot left for Toronto, what do you think about the season so far?
Yeah, it's been fantastic, Tanya. Just firstly, in terms of the quality of chess, we've been lucky enough to witness some of the best players in the world really throwing stuff at each other. And it feels like it has been building up to this point. We're near the end of the season. This is the final regular event, and I think these really stellar cast, they're going to save their best now for the end.
The season-long tour aims at establishing the ultimate king of online speed chess, and 7 players have punched their ticket to the grand final. Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, Nordbeck, Abdusatrov with tournament wins. Fabiano Caruana, Wesley So, Denis Lazovic, and Alireza Firouzja getting enough tour points to make it to Toronto. They are uncatchable on the tour standings. 1 name remains to be stamped in that graphic, and these are the 8 players who will be fighting it out in the AI Cup. Magnus Carlsen, Alireza, Denis, and Jan Nepo making it through with their Julius Baer Generation Cup performance. Meanwhile, Maxime, Vachier-Lagrave, Shakhriyar, Mamedyarov, Anish, and Hikaru earned their spot through the plains. David, you called out the action in the plains. Looking at the form of the players, who do you think comes in with the best shot for that final seat?
Yeah, I think we need to take a look at the overall standings because there's still so much to play for. You mentioned 4 names who are bang in form there, Tanya, who qualified for this event. But it's actually outside those top 7, highlighted in gold there, that I am looking. I'm looking at 8th place, Levon Aronian, who didn't actually make it to the AI Cup, who won't be playing. He's going to be watching nervously from home. Vladimir Fedoseev in 9th place. He's in Division 2 only. Division 1 victory. I think it might come down to that to decide the last spot in the finals.
And then we got those players there as well. You got Nepo, you got Mamedyarov. They must win this event to get a place in the final. It's the only way they're going to get through, and that means it's double pressure, double excitement. And Nepo, it's his first time here, so he can qualify in this one event, and that would be fantastic for him to do so.
So much on the line for these players. It is the final showdown, and as Mikhail Tal fans might say, that the path to Toronto is complicated and narrow enough for just 1 player to get through. And before we get on the journey of the AI Cup to see who makes it through, let's take a look at the road so far.
under 1 minute now for Hikaru, and wow, what a move.
Magnus has had no struggles against Hikaru over the board. He should be happy.
We have a winner. Magnus Carlsen takes it. He wins the Air Things Masters, the very first event.
He's trading more.
No
London's night.
It's time to go.
No more checks.
Oh, and we see a reaction. Magnus is
Hikaru
It's
Nakamura.
over.
He wins.
Hikaru Nakamura is the winner of the Chessable Masters. Fabiano Caruana resigns. What an Armageddon game by Hikaru.
Oh, you lose!
Oh my God, Hikaru Nakamura is about to get eliminated. And that's it. We have a winner. Nodebek Abdusatro wins the Chess Kid Cup. What a match performance this has been by the world #1.
There we go.
Oh my God, and we have a winner. Magnus Carlsen checkmates Wesley So and wins the AIM Chess Rapid. And that is it.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable chess here.
Black Queen on the board now is going to win this game. Magnus, he's got it.
He's got it in the end. Wow, what a fight that was.
Magnus Carlsen, he takes it. This is the winner of the Julius Baer Generation Cup.
And it all starts in just a few moments with so much at stake and on the line for these 8 players. Simon, highly contested battles, very close matchups here. Which one stands out to you?
Well, I'm actually going to say the Nepo versus Giri match is going to be very exciting because let's remember these players, they have to win the event to get to Toronto. So there's double pressure on that match. But of course, I think all eyes are going to be on Magnus versus Hikaru. I mean, they must be, right? Surely.
That one is going to be hard to ignore. It's going to be hard to take our eyes off that match between Magnus and Hikaru, but they have both stamped their spot in the Tour Finals in Toronto, so we'll be aiming to keep everyone up to date with all of the action.
Magnus versus Hikaru, David, haven't seen that one before, have you? It's been a while.
Yeah, they're not strangers, these two. I'm pretty sure they're sick of the sight of each other, but yeah, there's always a storyline. There's always revenge on the cards, and I mean, so much pride at stake between those two warriors, those two giants.
This year alone, the two greats have played in 3 epic battles in the finals with gloves on and neither backing down.
Now the Black King is the one that is doomed. Checkmate is coming. Black's King all alone, and Hikaru does eventually throw in the towel.
Magnus has had no struggles against Hikaru over the board. He should be happy.
It's
have a result.
over. We have a winner. Magnus Carlsen takes it. He wins the Air Things Masters, the very first event.
He has to rush this like he's never rushed before. Yep, 10 seconds. Here comes the 8. Push him. You missed it. Tied match. It's a tied match. Hikaru should play for a win. Look at the clock. Should, and he knows it, and he does it. Hikaru going in. Wait, there was a blunder. Queen B6. Yeah, this pawn is promoting. He allowed the queen in. The pawn is promoting. You see it on Magnus' face. He knows. God. That does it. Is how Hikaru Nakamura defended his Bullet Chess Championship title. Queen takes G3.
Oh my gosh. There's a queen sack on G3 and F4 leads to mate, and he's done it. Oh!
Oh my goodness, that is
Hikaru.
beautiful.
Rook A2. He missed it.
Oh my goodness, Rook takes B6 again.
Rook takes B6 and it's over. Rook takes
It's
B6.
all over.
And he missed it.
Oh my goodness, he still has something. Maybe Rook C7 for a draw.
Both rooks are sacrificed. Oh my gosh, Aman. Hikaru had forced mate. And it's a draw by agreement. And it's the match.
He offers a draw, a gentleman's draw.
You cannot script this any better.
That was a finish for the history books. Punches have been traded, starting with the Air Things Masters final in February, where Magnus won against Hikaru. Hikaru did not have to wait too long for his revenge in the Bullet Chess Championship, winning the finals. And then, just less than 72 hours ago, Magnus Carlsen won the Speed Chess Championship final. Rivalries are not built overnight, and these two have a long storyline, so much history between them. And we always have these iconic sporting famed rivalries, right? You've got Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier. You've got Ronaldo, Messi. I'm thinking
Lawrence Trent, Magnus Carlsen.
that was one as well, somewhere on my list. But do you think, Simon, Magnus Hikaru will go down as one of the greatest sporting rivalries?
I think it has to. I mean, Magnus is quite possibly the greatest chess player of all time. But Hikaru now, he's got this massive following. He's dominating online chess. He's a great bullet player, maybe the best online bullet player. He proved that recently. So these two players, they're so close. Their matches are so exciting. They always come down to 1 point. So yeah, like Kasparov-Karpov in the 80s, and I think we got another one now. We got it. We got Magnus versus Hikaru, and that's what we want. We want these rivalries.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating as well about this rivalry is that there have been so many different phases. They're both in their prime now, but it started a long time ago. Back in 2010, they had this famous blitz match against each other in a hotel room. Just an informal match here. I believe it was 40 games. And Magnus, he then had the upper hand psychologically against Hikaru. He was beating him pretty much every single time in classical chess, but that eventually turned around.
Yeah. And Magnus won this best of 40 match, and Hikaru went on, all well documented, that he actually regretted playing it from a psychological mindset, because it seemed to give Magnus a big advantage, where he went on to dominate their encounters for years to come until 2016. What happened, David?
2016, Hikaru finally, after years of trying, got his first classical win against Magnus over the board, and suddenly the mental block, it was gone. And in recent years, we've had the age of online chess. Hikaru, we know, is the king of online chess, and he's really been able to land blows on Magnus, and now they're fighting from a level footing. Simon said it's so close now between the two.
It is, yeah. I mean, that was maybe a turning point. I mean, I think everyone's had that, a bad opponent that he'd lose to on a regular basis, but you need to break that. And when Hikaru broke that by winning that one game, he's got a bit of momentum on his side, and his confidence has grown, and probably his bank balance has helped that a little bit as well. You don't need to worry so much, so you can just enjoy what you love, playing chess. And this is a proper rivalry, and we're going to see more of it today, which is great.
Yeah, and that next phase, as you mentioned, happened during the pandemic, when that pressure came off Hikaru, and we're seeing them fight it out, battle it out on level ground whenever these two meet. We can expect a lot of fireworks and a lot of fun. Now, while Magnus and Hikaru have punched their ticket to Toronto, the two times World Championship challenger Jan Nepomniachtchi, it is go big or go home for him. He needs that tournament victory to make it, alongside his rival, who he does play against today, Anish Giri. A big one for these two. David, who is your pick?
Oh, this is fascinating because, as you mentioned, Tanya, both players need to win the tournament to guarantee their spot in the finals. I'm going to say, despite being a slight underdog on paper, lower rated on Chess.com, Anish Giri, and suffering in the head-to-head, I think this might be his moment. He was really impressive in the play-ins just recently.
Can Anish Giri keep up his form? That will be the big question. And we also have another juicy matchup as we see a battle of speed chess specialists here. Simon, what can we expect when the French #1 takes on the French #2?
This is going to be a great match. I mean, just because of the style of play of the two players. I mean, they both love attacking. They both love tactics. And they are, they're tactical geniuses. I mean, I would have to say Firouzja probably has the edge because he's the younger player. He's maybe a little bit sharper. I mean, we all lose our minds a little bit as we get older. Is that right? I don't know, but a little bit. So he has to be the favourite, but it's just going to be good chess, I think, that one. Very exciting to watch.
You say the younger player. We've all got to be feeling like fossils, thinking that Alireza Firouzja is not the youngest player in the AI Cup. It is the 16-year-old Denis Lazovic, and he will be taking on Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. David, what do you predict in this battle of youth versus experience?
Yeah, a generational clash here. Denis Lazovic might only be 16, but he did so well throughout this season on the Champions Chess Tour. He's got this really nice, kind of smooth, positional, strategic style, great at maneuvering, great at endgames, but he meets his exact opposite, the contrasting style. Mamedyarov is just fire on the board, attacking, aggressive chess, and I can't wait to see what occurs when those two meet.
So is it fair to say, David, that it's going to be a lot about who gets their kind of position in this matchup?
I think that's the key. Whoever gets their style, imposes their will on the opponent, is going to win that one.
Big matches all around, but of course, the marquee fight will be between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. In less than a minute, we will have the first moves, and this is their head-to-head. The storyline, the iconic rivalry, does continue today at the AI Cup. David, they played against each other in that epic clash on Friday in the SCC final. What kind of adjustments are you expecting from the two players coming into the match today?
Yeah, first of all, it's a different time control. It's a longer time limit here today. So some adjustments there, but it's all about those mind games. They battled it out on in various different openings there. The Royal Lopez, the Spanish opening, was their main battleground. And it's just about who spent the weekend studying harder, who can get maybe a new opening on the board and who can launch the first surprise.
Nice shirt there.
He's got a fair few bright shirts, hasn't he? I mean, we saw the pineapple one, and I was wondering what it is with the pineapples and Hikaru. Someone has to enlighten me with that, but he seems to love pineapples.
Hikaru Nakamura looking very ready for his match against Magnus. Bit of a revenge storyline, but Magnus isn't present right now.
I mean, look at the difference in the two rooms. And you have to say, Hikaru had everything so well organised, and it looks like Magnus moved in about 5 minutes ago there. I mean, he's got his couch bed there, a couple of chairs. I mean, what's happening?
A lot is happening in that room. My first question, what's that book under the sofa? But Magnus coming back in, it seems like he didn't manage to get a change before this match, David.
Yeah, I believe that book is about kind of Soviet chess history, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I'm
What's
not
he
going to
doing under the
speculate.
sofa?
Magnus, he's read too many chess books. There's not enough space in the apartment for all of them. But he's here, he's ready to go, and so are we. I can't wait for this game to kick off, and we'll see how much respect they have each other in terms of the openings. Magnus normally plays e4 against Hikaru.
And Simon, we saw a lot of e4 in their SCC final. Many Royal Lopez battles from both these players. Are you expecting a similar storyline in the openings or some switch-ups?
I think there'll be some subtle changes, but I, as David says, I think they're going to treat each other with a lot of respect. Magnus is known to experiment sometimes, 1a6. Okay, we have a bit of a different move here. The knight hops out, maybe suggesting a Reti opening or something similar. And this is already a little unusual from Magnus.
Yeah, a really flexible choice here from Magnus, depending on how Nakamura reacts, which pawn black pushes here. Magnus has a variety of different setups to choose from, and okay, copycat chess. He just develops his knight as well. And Magnus here, he hints that he might go for the English opening, but yeah, we could see this transpose into Queen's Gambits. We could see it transpose into Queen's Indians, all sorts of different positions possible here. Okay, he pushes a pawn, getting ready to fianchetto Black's light squared bishop. That bishop is going to land on b7 on a nice long diagonal. And yeah, it feels like they're just freestyling at this point. They're just, of course, a well-known position, but they're just going through those mind games that we alluded to. They're just trying to kind of get each other out of book as early as possible.
Yeah, B6, the move that Hikaru just played, is a little bit of an unusual move. I mean, Magnus now deciding what kind of setup he wants to play. He can either play in the centre or maybe he can fianchetto on the king side as well. And, I mean, one of Magnus's real strengths and probably what he's got as an advantage over everyone else in the world is just his knowledge of various setups. I mean, these guys, they pretty much know everything, but Magnus knows everything and a little bit more. You know, you mentioned he had that Soviet chess book. He's so well read and researched. So and here he goes. He's just deciding to fianchetto his bishop there. And I always think generally the fianchetto bishop on the king side, defended by the king, is stronger than the one on the queen side because it's undefended. So to my eyes, this seems very sensible, but normal position.
A normal position, a cagey start from these two players, just feeling the opening rhythm out right now. We did see Hikaru in the Speed Chess Championship also employ the system with the black pieces. This is going to be a tense fight, but the other fights are on as well, as Anish and Jan Nepo are ready to make their first moves, and we will get an update on that. But in this one, very often we don't see the Queen's Indian as the choice by some of these top players. A very solid line. Does this surprise you, David, to see Hikaru employ the Queen's Indian time and time again?
Some surprise value, but as you said, that key word, Tanya, solid. And I think with Black in a first game, it's best of 4 here. I think Hikaru would be happy with a solid start, a nice draw, take the white pieces next and then start to push. That tends to be good classical chess wisdom. Early days, of course, but yeah, it goes through fashion stages, this opening, and Hikaru, he's had some success with it. So here we go.
He's doing the Beth Harmon a bit there, isn't he? Old Hikaru. And it's always fascinating to see the body language of the different players. And he's either doing the Beth Harmon or he's crying. And Magnus is just enjoying a kebab or something. You know, he's just tucking into his probably his breakfast, knowing Magnus at the moment. But okay. And we have another game about to start him.
Yeah, two players looking very solemn compared to Hikaru and Magnus. Both players, they know this is crunch time. This is where they really need to shine. The stage doesn't get much bigger than this, where they have to win the event pretty much to guarantee their spot in the finals. And Nepo, she's starting with White. He's armed with World Championship preparation. That might be the difference here. He's been so good, especially with the white pieces in the last few years.
Yeah, for Anish and Nepo, it is all about getting that tournament a victory or a really good finish to get enough tour points to surpass some of the other players. But for that, they will also need other results to go their way. So the easiest path for these two to Toronto would be to get the AI Cup tournament victory. They start against each other. Nepo with a fantastic performance in Division 2 of the Julius Baer Generation Cup. Meanwhile, Anish Giri with an equally incredible performance in the play-ins. That was really impressive.
Yeah, really impressive to qualify for this event, Anish Giri. Anyone who qualifies for the from the play-ins to the Champions Chess Tour is in really top form. But he did ride his luck. He did actually have a losing position against Fedoseev there, Giri, and he made it through by the skin of his teeth.
Just wondering if that was actually a design on Nepo's T-shirt or if he spilled his coffee. I wasn't really sure, but I think it is a design, just so we clarify that. But, yeah. And there we see Anish as well, preparing and thinking hard.
Well, as the two players set up and get ready to make their first moves, let's jump back to our marquee matchup. Some developments here. And White, Magnus still chomping on his food, but also the center. He's managed to gain control over the center, has some more space. And it started with a solid Queen's Indian, but has transformed into a pretty dynamic pawn structure where Black has got a majority on the queen side, but White more space in the center and a potential kingside attack.
Yeah, this pawn structure that you're kind of referencing here, Tanya, it more often arises from the Grunfeld defense or from the semi-Tarrasch defense. But yeah, here it looks like both sides have reason to be happy. Black long-term doing very well, as you mentioned, that queenside pawn majority. Dynamically, White in the current position should be pretty optimistic because of that beautiful pawn center. And this is still a relatively well-known position. So I'm slightly surprised that both sides have been burning a bit of time up to this moment. But yeah, I think the game will be decided on who can kind of manipulate this position best, who can get their pieces active quicker. I'm expecting Magnus now to continue development. White's dark square bishop needs to choose a square. And later on, it's about whether White can step forward in the center. If he can successfully, he has a big advantage. If he can't, then Black should be quite content.
Yeah, we've seen this kind of structure before quite a lot, as you mentioned, and I think you summed it up great there, David. Black's chances generally tend to get better as the game goes on, right into the ending, because he can get the outside pass pawn, and Magnus just developing his last piece there. I always like having White in these positions, though. I mean, you've got a lot of pieces on the board. You've got it's White who kind of decides the pace of the game, because White has both of these pawns that he can push at the right moment. You don't have to do it straight away. You can improve your pieces first, but it's nice to kind of be in charge, I feel, sometimes. While Black just has to wait for one of those pushes and try to improve his pieces, take over the open C file.
I agree with you, Simon. And I think for White, it's all about trying to get that play on the king side. The bishop from b2 can often become a sniper once you get a central pawn moving. The move d5 always in the air to open up that diagonal, start targeting Black's king on the queen side. Meanwhile, for Hikaru, the plans are often advancing the queenside pawns, also bringing the rook to the open C line, and the knight jumps from a5 to c4, targeting that dark squared bishop. But the big question in my mind, David, is right now, and you know Magnus well, so I'm going to ask you, has Magnus just woken up? What's going on here?
It is past 6 p.m. in Norway, 6 o'clock in the evening. But I do know that Magnus likes to wake up late, depending on the day, depending on what his responsibilities are. Magnus is, of course, well known. He's on record saying he wakes up, he times his kind of sleep patterns according to when he needs to peak in the day, and he'll need to peak within these next few hours. So hopefully he's been awake for a while by now. But yeah, certainly not playing so quickly at the moment, not looking his freshest, sharpest. We'll see when the game really livens up whether he's ready to strike.
I think his priorities at the moment seem to be his food rather than the chess, you know. So he's getting his energy in to fuel himself there. And we see his last move, very logical move, bringing the rook to the open file. That's where the rooks belong. And here, Hikaru trying to make some exchanges. And as we mentioned before, exchanges generally help Hikaru's position. You take the sting out of White's pawns. White really wants to use those pawns to create an attack, I'd say, against Black's king there. So good, solid moves from both players so far.
All right, this one is a strategic battle right now, but as soon as one of those central pawns start moving, it can become very spicy on the king side. We will keep an eye out on this one. We're also getting moves on the Jan Nepomniachtchi versus Anish Giri matchup. A very important fight in our tour standings for that final spot into Toronto. And this one, a cagier start.
Yeah, cagier start, and we've jumped into the middle game here. Both sides have developed, castled. This did stem from a Sicilian defense, and White having this Maroczy bind, White having pawns on e4 and c4 means that White had the extra space, but now Giri has broken out. He sacrificed a pawn. We just saw a pawn captured there on b5, and Black needs compensation. Suddenly it's become really, really tactical, all sorts of tricks in the air, and both players calculating. Nepomniachtchi has barely used any time, so he looks confident. What do we think of this sacrifice?
Yeah, I guess maybe Black's idea is to recapture in the centre of the board with his knight. I think this would be the first move you'd want to play, and the idea is to distract the White queen away from the defence of the knight. And they say central pawns are more important than pawns on the wing, but if you look at White's pawns, they do look very scary as they're connected, and if they get motoring up the board, they could cause a lot of damage there. But this is quite an interesting position, and quite hard to assess really. But Anish playing all the right things. This break he played b5 on the queen side is the move that you must know in order to play these positions successfully with Black. You need to break out at some point, otherwise your position is just too passive. And yeah, it kind of looks all right for Anish, but the evaluation bar still favouring White at this moment in time.
Yeah, that gives us a big clue that potentially White's queenside pawns will be more dangerous, and there we go, at least easier to push than Black's central pawns. The fact that Nepomniachtchi's been playing so quickly up to this point makes me slightly concerned if I'm Anish Giri, but still a lot to play for. If he can hold up White's pawns on the queenside, the advantage, the momentum could change just instantly. So key moments in the next few moves.
Yeah, I said KG, and immediately with that b5 break, the position becomes very spicy. Give White one more move. The a-pawn will advance to a4, hitting that rook, which now has been stopped by Anish, placing his own rook on 8. And I think it's time to get the central pawns moving, rolling, and we see him come forward with the tempo against White's queen. Are we expecting... well, Black has to defend the c6 knight before you can start pushing the e-pawn.
Yeah, you have to defend the Black Knight or move the Black Knight. He jumps into the centre. But I do really fear for Anish Giri. Look how quickly Nepomniachtchi's playing. He throws another pawn forward. These White pawns have already got a head start on their rivals in the centre there. The pawns are going to keep rolling down the board. And also, this is move 21. I think Nepomniachtchi's still in opening preparation. I think he's studied this position before, or at least knows what to do, maybe up until this very moment. And that's a scary proposition. World Championship preparation, we've talked about it before. He's prepared for 2 World Championship matches, and he knows what to do in pretty much all these openings.
Yeah, and he's just pushing those pawns forwards. I mean,
easy plan.
I love these plans when I'm playing because, you know, I'm not a very sophisticated player. You know, I either see my opponent's king and I try to checkmate, or I see a pawn becoming a queen and I try to push the pawn. And it's so easy for White to play this position. I mean, White can just support those pawns, push those pawns. So there's a lot of problems actually for Anish here because how does he get counterplay? His central pawns are very slow there, and he's only got 1 passed pawn while Nepo has 2 passed pawns. And I agree with David, this must be preparation. The speed he's playing, the opening kind of led into this position, and we often see Anish being the better prepared player, but everyone gets tricked out on occasions, and I just feel that Anish has probably been tricked here in this game and is struggling at the moment.
But with Jan, it's always so hard to tell how much of it is preparation because he plays fast and quickly no matter what the position is.
He does. He plays at the same tempo, right? It must be really scary playing him because you don't know if he's prepared this or he's just playing, you know, and very confidently. He reminds me of Garry Kasparov, you know, very confident player, very, you can see his emotions on his face. He's quite easy to read as well. But I think this is preparation, right? Must be.
I think up until the last couple of moves, Jan knew exactly what to do. And that kind of comparison with Kasparov is funny because when I first met Jan, when we were really young, I played a tournament in Russia and Garry Kasparov actually was a guest at that event. And he said, yeah, he's the new me, basically.
Right.
He said, this guy is the key of the next generation. And yeah, his position just looks so easy to play. Black has retreated, but I think here White can continue in various ways. Maybe the most simple right now, if we jump in, and I'm expecting Jan to play very quickly, would be to shuffle the rook into the corner. The plan is to just push these pawns forward using brute force. You want to kick away the blockaders, and by moving your rook to A1 here, you simply kind of set up this big threat. If Black chooses to block to continue, then I think you can just trade off, and this Black rook will be passive forever, and White can start combining it with queen moves. The rook is coming into a nice outpost. It's one-way traffic. These Black rooks are terrible. They're passive blockaders. White's rooks will support the pawns rolling forward. I expect this from Jan Nepomniachtchi, but okay, he just plays it, as I mentioned, and whoops, sorry, that's me clicking on a different game. This is the position, and Jan has the advantage as White.
He is going for the simple plan of get the pawns rolling, and we also see the eval bar gets rolling towards White's position here. For Anish, I think he also needs to do the same in the center of the board, get that e-pawn up and try and create some chances and some distractions with e5, d4 coming in. We will keep an eye out on this one, but we've got moves in the other matchup as well. Let's head over to the all-French clash between Alireza Firouzja against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. We were expecting fireworks, and looking at the position, I think we should be rather pleased with this opening.
Yeah, another Sicilian defense, but this time the open Sicilian. Often that means opposite side castling, kind of mutual attacks, a bit of a race who gets to the opposition king first. And Black's king uncastled in the center. Can White break through in the middle of the board? That's one question. The other question is White's king. Is it safe on the queen side? It looks like Black's ready to launch a pawn storm on that side of the board. And okay, all the knights are off, meaning that jumping into outposts, those kind of holes, they're less relevant. It's purely bishops left. Simon, who do you prefer?
I always like having a bit of extra space, and in these kind of positions, it's king safety is the most important thing. And at the moment, White has the slightly safer king. Maybe he's going to try to exchange bishops off now. But I was also thinking, just chess-wise, this match is going to be the most interesting because of their style of play. They both love attacking chess, and OK, things are now calming down a little bit with Black managing to get his king over to the right-hand side. And the position, maybe it's still in theory, it's taken on a slightly different nature with White trying to control the centre, but Black creating some slight nuisance on the queen side. I mean, I think I still like White here, but it seems pretty underbalanced at the moment.
Yeah, it's just heavy pieces on the board, just queens and rooks, major pieces here. And it's all about mutual attacks. I would hesitate to allow any lines to open up near the White king if I were Firouzja. So I'm expecting him to block it, bypass Black's pawn, push White's pawn to a4 here. There we go. And the onus is definitely on Black, right, Simon? Black needs to compensate for the fact that White's rook is rock solid in the center, White's queen nicely centralized.
It looks nice. I mean, the valuation bar thinks the position is even, but the problem is White's pieces are dominating the board, right? You've got the last rook can come into the center. The White queen can actually come into the queen side. I love this move from Maxime. He's trying to create some kind of holes around White's king. And if White now continues to keep the position closed by moving his c-pawn forwards, you've always got some problems with your king. Your king is always in a bit of a tomb there with the White side. So it's maybe enough play for Black later on. If the Black queen ever gets into White's position, then Black will certainly be better.
Yeah,
White needs to keep control.
Maybe the queen comes in using this square, for example, after a trade of rooks. Black's queen suddenly has a path in, and if it ever gets behind, as you say, Simon, there's going to be some nasty checkmates. So watch out for that rear guard action here. White needs to be really careful, and I'm expecting first you need to trade off a set of rooks. White's rook is just too powerful. So you have really in the balance, kind of visually, white looks superior here, but counter chances for Vachier-Lagrave later on.
And it all is because of that B3 pawn, just really cramping White's king there, creating chances of the checkmate that you were pointing out, making sure that White can't get too active in this position. A dynamically balanced one. Let's head back to the Magnus Hikaru game as Alireza ponders, as Maxime Vachier-Lagrave ponders his next move in this one. And there we have it. Wow, that's a lot that's happened. The d-pawn was pushed to the center of the board, captured, and instead of recapturing, Magnus first decides to jump in with the knight, coming in with the tempo, hitting the queen, also opening up his own bishop so that he's able to recapture on d5.
Yeah, it looks really pleasant for White right now. We talk about Phi and Ketoed bishops, and White's bishops on g2, b2. They'll just control the whole board shortly. And also momentum White, he's the one creating the threats. Suddenly, body language expert Simon Williams, we need a reading.
Thank you, David. So looking at the body language of the two players, I can barely see Magnus because it's a bit dark in his room, but I mean, he looks pretty chilled out. He's probably digesting his food. And Hikaru, I mean, he's got a very unique thinking pose, hasn't he? I mean, he always, it is the Beth Harmon thing where to recall his information, he's always like looking around the room and just trying to calculate away from the board. It's interesting as well. I mean, I was thinking this the other day, the way chess has developed. Hikaru has kind of coined the king of online chess. And there's a big difference now between playing online and playing over the board. I mean, playing online, you kind of recall everything in 2D. So you know, and playing over a real board, you recall everything in a 3D way. And I think some people just, you know, memorize and can get to that information in an easier way if it's 2D or 3D. He's definitely a 2D guy, and it's weird how the brain thinks when you're trying to calculate these lines. But White must be doing well here. I mean, this move, it attacks the queen. Magnus can simply go pawn takes pawn, which he has done, and that pawn is very dangerous. And as you say, look at White's bishops. So Hikaru playing very bravely here. And just aiming to get some compensation by exchanging the queens. Well, we have loads of moves. I mean, you know, what's going on? You know, there's about 10 moves happened there. So that was remarkable how quickly they played. I mean, it's not bullet chess anymore, guys. Just chill. Just chill a little bit.
It's not the SCC, but David, you need to do an action replay because so much happened and just so quickly.
Yeah, so quickly. And we saw, if we backtrack to this moment, we jumped in here. The white knight has just leapt into the center, attacking black's queen. Hikaru paused. Like Simon said, he was looking around the room. He spent 2 or 3 minutes. And then suddenly we saw the flurry of moves, both players calculating. And it's instructive for everyone at home. Magnus calculating on his opponent's time. That's something to bear in mind. You want to save time in any speed game. Queen to a4, a very forcing move, attacking a pawn. White recaptures, again, forcing type of move, checks, captures and threats. Queen takes pawn, another capture. The queen slides across to defend her bishop. Watch out, there's some nasty checkmating ideas. If the white knight jumps out the way, the white queen can take on g7. So black blocks this diagonal, but then the black queen is almost trapped. Only one safe square, forcing a queen trade, and white regains the pawn that was captured on the A file earlier. So after black's knight retreats, this is the kind of remnants of that kind of melee that we found ourselves in, and white still has this really strong passed pawn, only 3 squares away from promotion. The question is it a strength or a weakness? Black, watch out for this pawn long term, has the outside runner further away from the kings, so if all the pieces disappear, then black may be for choice. It's really still hanging in the balance, but the lack of queens means it's now more about really concrete play. Magnus playing f4 here, defending his knight. And yeah, I think I would still choose white, but I think maybe some of the advantage is gone. I think Hikaru, really practical decision to trade off those queens.
Yeah, maybe it just depends how dangerous White's pawn is in the centre of the board. And at some point, White's just going to try to jam that forwards, right? And if Hikaru can neutralise that pawn, then he's going to be absolutely fine. There's nothing else to worry about. But there's going to be many tactical points here because all the bishops are lined up against each other as well. So you've got to keep an eye out for any exchanges or any knight moves, any pawn moves to unleash those bishops. So Hikaru needs to use his time now, and he's having a good think about how to neutralise this position. Maybe moving the rook into the centre makes a lot of sense. Move it in front of the pawn. This would be the first move I think you'd think of, but I don't know, maybe there's some tactics there if that happens, and he's just got to be a little bit careful. If he's a little bit careful, he should be all right here.
Yeah, another thing to calculate, for example, the move I want to play is rook to a8, and before we decide whether to even trade rooks, Magnus has the option of taking this bishop. We see the evaluation bar drop. It doesn't work, but this is the type of thing that Hikaru is calculating. The pawn could now step forward, and there's a nasty skewer on this knight, on this rook. It looks like the pawn is about to promote, but black does have the saving grace of moving this rook out the way with a counter threat. Rook to a2, and this is not maybe an easy move to spot. You're leaving your knight hanging, but tactics in the air. This would work out for black, and I think if he can get the rooks off the board, he should. So I'm expecting rook a8 from Hikaru after a bit of calculation.
Even though the queens are off the board, the game, the position has so much to play for and so many tricks to watch out for in this one because of the d-pawn. And of course, these two fighting it out till the end. When you're playing against Magnus, you have to make sure that you're aware of everything, even if the position is balanced. We did hear from Magnus on Twitter right before his encounter against Hikaru Nakamura. And let's see if we can bring that up. Well, Magnus might not have had a shower before this match or changed his clothes or had his food, but he did tweet that revenge is a dish best not served at all. So he's talking about the SCC final where he won against Hikaru, and he's saying no revenge today for you.
Yeah, I mean, this rivalry, they take it really seriously. They both laugh at the end of it, yeah. But really, I mean, Hikaru was dying inside when he lost that one, as Magnus was when he lost the 1 minute. So they've kind of won one big event each. So this is important to them. They want to show who the boss is of online chess.
Yeah, I think every time they play against each other, they're just able to bring out the best in each other to fight it out. While they have a think in this endgame, while Hikaru tries to neutralize all of Magnus's edge in this one, let's head over to Jan Nepo versus Anish Giri as we see the eval bar slide more and more in favor of Jan's queenside pawn storm, which he's gotten all the way to a4 and b5. Meanwhile, for Anish, those central pawns still stuck, still haven't managed to create their counter chances. But is it as easy as what the eval bar seems to imply here?
I don't think it's as easy for humans here to convert white's advantage, but look at the clock times. 10 minutes 45 against under 1 minute already for Anish Giri. He was caught out in the opening. I think we've kind of discussed that before. That's settled now, but he somehow surviving this middle game. I was going to say end game. Yeah, that is a tough order with no time on the clock. And look at what Nepo is doing. He's saying, you have one plan. Black's only plan is to push the central pawn. He's blockading that. And then he's got a free turn. He's got a free hand to push his own pawns straight forward for white. So easy and quick to play. And the evaluation bar reacts even more. Very natural move there from Giri. What could the refutation be?
Yeah, I mean, this is a move you expect Black to play, but he does leave his 7th rank quite weak. And I suppose the first move you have to calculate here is the white rook just moving forwards 1 square, attacking Black's queen, but also attacking the weak point on f7, trying to get the queen into that square. But I suppose Black is defending here. I mean, I don't know if you can go rook c8, but that looks a bit strange, or maybe just queen e8 there. So that'd be the logical move. And the other idea is just keep pushing those pawns right at the right time. I mean, there's a couple of options, but rook c8 could be the move there. But e5, it looks very human. And when you've got under a minute on the clock, it's the kind of move you're going to play without thinking too much.
Yeah, this position now on the board, Simon, and look, suddenly the evaluation bar has dropped. Jan rushing the position. He had so much time on the clock here. If he had followed your second idea, Simon, if he had pushed the pawn forward based on a nice tactical trick, I think white is simply winning on the spot. After e4, I was going to say maybe you can even take this pawn and then throw your pawn back down to b7. But even if you just retreat, the problem is Black's pawns are not rolling any further. If you ever step forward here, this pawn drops. And I think he would have won. But let's catch up with the game. Instead, queens are off the board suddenly. And whoa, where's the advantage gone? Let's do a quick action replay. We saw rook dc8, a nice counter threat, a pin. The queens disappeared. And suddenly white going for the f7 pawn, f5.
A big blunder.
Ooh, a blunder.
But why?
It must be to do with white pushing this pawn. Does he do it now? Or does he first bring his rook across? It's all based on this b pawn. And wow, look, the computer here, the engine suggestions below the screen, below the board, they do confirm that rook to b3, only winning move.
On the board.
And he plays it.
Yeah.
Simple plan.
Wow. And I think, David, the point is that if you would have pushed the B pawn first, black simply lines up his rook against the B pawn. B6, you've got rook B4. But after the move that Jan Nepomniachtchi has played, the B pawn is unstoppable now.
Yeah, the B pawn is now unstoppable. And, OK, we see a few more moves. Black did take this pawn, and he's trying to blockade desperately. But White is simply going to push this pawn forward, bring his rook across, and get rid of this blockader. Black's rook is not going to hold the fort for too much longer.
Yeah, this game's going to be over soon, and the problem here was Anish's time as well. Well, his position and his time. Maybe he could have held that with a little bit more emphasis on the clock, but he didn't manage to do that. And Barry, the B pawn, is running through the board. Anish trying to hold on as long as he can, but now that rook can even come to A8 or just manoeuvre to the 7th rank. It looks very tricky. Anish giving up his most important pawn there. And yeah, it's not easy.
Nice.
This is a killer move, isn't it? Just trying to get a rook to the last rank and get the pawn to become a queen. So Nepo's going to get this one.
Yeah. White is simply going to play a rook to D8 check, get rid of that blockader, make a new queen. It will cost Black his rook, and Black's D pawn looks far advanced. It won't get much further. However, White's rook and White's king are near enough to stop that pawn running. This one is game over.
It is game over, and Anish Giri there has resigned. 13 seconds on the clock for 10 minutes for Jan Nepomniachtchi. He takes their first game in the matchup in a convincing manner with that advantage out of the opening, converting it flawlessly. The other games are still on. Let's head back to Magnus. Let's start with this one. Alireza against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. We did check in with this position. One pair of rooks were traded, but White has managed to recapture with the pawn, which actually ties down Maxime's pieces to defend it from advancing further.
Yeah, this has real shades of the previous game, actually, that we saw between Nepomniachtchi and Giri, in that it's just major pieces, just queens and rooks, and it's all about passed pawns. White's pawn looks super strong. So why does the evaluation bar say level? Simon, I'm confused here. I would take White all day long.
Yeah, it looks really good for White. I mean, if White can open up some more lines here, then Black's position is going to crumble. But I guess there's always chances to get around the back and get into White's position. I mean,
Black has a threat, right? You want to go F6 next.
Yeah.
And kick the White queen and actually win that D6 pawn.
Yeah. So maybe F5 here would be a normal move to play.
Yeah, maybe we can show this. F6 a huge threat, as Tanya points out. For example, if White is just one move too slow, F6, the White queen can no longer defend her pawn. And here, suddenly, not just is Black a pawn up, but you will be maybe breaking through to the first rank to deliver a killer check. So F5 is the key move. If played, what is Black's reply? If you take this pawn now, it feels like you're going in the wrong direction. At the very least, White can offer a trade of queens, get rid of that blockader, just like we saw in the previous game, the previous example. So F5 looks super strong. He hasn't played it. What else? Is he just calculating the consequences here? I think this is pretty much an automatic move to play, especially in a rapid game. You have no other options.
No other options? I'm just wondering, is the other break an option here? F5, very tempting. Is Alireza also considering the move G5?
Maybe that's the one. Maybe this is what's tempting him right now. And after a trade of pawns, I'm not sure. Maybe, I guess you take back, at least for now. The F6 square is under lock and key. White still has this nice formation. And Simon, it might be time next for your 8-pawn push.
Yeah, I'm amazed the evaluation bar does not approve so much of White's position, because it looks like White is doing really well here. I mean, the Black queen, it can't move because it allows White's D-pawn to push on. The Black rook looks very passive. So why is it saying that Black is actually OK when White has this lovely queen, this lovely pawn in the middle of the board? It's not clear to me.
Maybe the Black rook slides back and some chances of a counter attack, suddenly a blitz attack against the White king. This is the direction we're heading in. White has just played G5, so we'll see how the game unfolds. I'm now expecting Black's rook to move. There's simply nothing else you can do. The pawns are frozen. Black's queen is a blockader, but she is threatening to come out and take A4, go for the White king. Stakes are really, really high in this one. And you can see it's a kind of a local derby, battle of the Frenchmen, but they both want to win it. Look how focused they are.
Yeah, this was an excellent move, rook C8, as you pointed out. Yeah, really good way to get counterplay.
Really nice idea. And if White's queen was to step back to defend that A-pawn from the square of F4 or anywhere on the 4th rank, Black can actually push that C-pawn to C4, again renewing the threat that David was talking about. Queen E4 or Queen F4 would, I think, David, run into C4, and you're again wanting to pick up the A4 pawn and create your own threats against the White king.
Yeah, I think we'll see your move on the board any moment now, Tanya. And is it interesting at all that Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, he's wearing a French national top in this battle of the Frenchmen?
Yeah, I mean, got to be patriot, you know. So, and I'm now actually liking black. It's funny how one little tactical move can change the position around. And I suppose white has counterplay on the king side. Maybe he can also push his G pawn. So it's getting to a very critical and exciting moment in this match here. But yeah, interesting position that we see. And if black does play this move c4, I'm assuming white can play on the other side of the board and push the G pawn, and that will lead to a lot of chaos. And we're going to see c4, and there's a big threat, the black queen threatening to take the pawn and come in and harass white's king there.
And you can't actually defend the A4 pawn. You have to find your counter chances on the king side.
Yeah, it's one of those cases. Defense is overrated. Here it's just impossible. You just have to fight fire with fire and go for the black king. And it's a bit of a gamble. Remember, the players don't see the evaluation bar, so they have no idea whether they're winning, losing. Here, both players have reason to be optimistic, but also counterplay in the air. It's, yeah, real doubt in both players' minds, for sure. G6 has to be played, Simon. I think go for it.
On the board, G6. This is fire on the board, and we're getting a big update that there has been big developments in the Magnus Carlsen Hikaru Nakamura game as the players are under 20 seconds with an endgame where Magnus Carlsen once again has done some Magnus magic.
Magnus magic. It's always in the endgame that Magnus is able to weave his net, trick his opponents. And we talk about the power of the two bishops. It's level pawns here, but the only imbalance is that white has the bishop pair. And look, suddenly trading off, and he's going for that remaining black pawn on h7.
And that's it. We have a result.
Wow, Hikaru resigned?
Yeah, you can see his body language there as well. I mean, white's just going to take the pawn on the right-hand side, and queen is h-pawn. There's nothing that the knight can do to stop that. So, yeah, first blood to Magnus.
Magnus not letting that revenge dish being served. Hikaru immediately leaves. Of course, the battle continues. It is a best of 4, and the battle continues in this one as well. We left it when Alireza did strike with g6. Maxime does take it back. You can't allow the capture on that f7 pawn. And now, because the e6 is a weakness, Maxime doesn't have that time to capture on a4.
Yeah, both sides are a bit stuck. White doesn't really want to touch anything. White's queen, if it does go and capture some pawns, I think, OK, maybe now it does allow a potential offer of a queen trade. Yeah, black is really, really stuck right now, so not too much to do. He either has to move the black rook to support, to bring it over as a defender of his king, or he has to evaluate what happens if the queens come off the board. Queen to f7 being one tempting option. OK, he keeps everything combined here.
And it's got a little trick, David, a nice little trap there.
Yeah, we have to show this, Tanya. Took me a second. I think I would have missed it. I would have played a move like h4, and whoops, queen takes pawn would be a killer deflection tactic. And nasty back rank checkmate. We've talked about it a long, long time ago. This white king is actually really vulnerable due to the presence of this pawn cutting off its escape squares. So watch out for those back rank tricks over the next few moves. How to guard against this?
Big question, and you've got to be tactically so aware against Maxime, and he does guard against it because he drops the queen back to actually over-defend the d1 square. So now the trick of queen d6 doesn't work. You capture the queen, and after a check on f1, because of that last move, queen to g4, the rook does drop back to d1.
Yep, covering everything. Really clever play there from both sides. And watch that it's also threatening to take this pawn. How is the evaluation bar still in the center here? It's such a chaotic position for black. The stakes are really high. Maybe the key question is whether you go and take this pawn now and just go all in, go for the white king. But it does come at the cost of this pawn with a check. And
he's played it.
See a repetition here with queen h3 and queen e6?
I think so. I mean, it seems like kind of a perfectly played game, pretty much. I mean, white seems to have control, but MVL has found some great resources, and here we go. They're repeating positions because black's got a major threat of the black queen coming in with a check and then demolishing white's pawns on the queen side. So I think they have to take a draw, and just a very high-quality game.
Yeah, I wonder what the accuracy levels are for this game. For me, it might be 99% for both. Yeah. Just no mistakes at all, cancelling each other out, neutralising each other, and this game does end in a threefold repetition. We have the result, third time we've seen this position, and a very, very fair draw there to start the day.
Yeah, really quite a big fight there between Maxime and Alireza. Ends in a draw with nothing better with white to do than to repeat with checks, with that big threat from Maxime. Some fantastic defensive and attacking resources in this one. And we've got Maxime Vachier-Lagrave with black, finding his counter chances in the kind of positions that he enjoys playing. And the battle does continue against his teammate, Alireza Firouzja. For now, no teammates. It's full rivalry on the board. 4 big games, 4 big fights. David, a lot of big moments there. Which one was your highlight?
I'm going to choose the moment just to show everyone what happened, that Magnus Carlsen turned it on against Hikaru Nakamura and won that really close endgame. It was here, white having the 2 bishops, as we saw, being the decisive factor later, but Hikaru came up with the wrong plan. He retreated his bishop to f8. We'll see what happened there, but it was a faulty idea. He should have brought his knight to d5, going after this pawn instead. The black knight, black bishop are going to gang up, win this pawn, and most likely this game would have fizzled out to a draw. Instead, retreating his bishop was not the right path. Magnus played a really clever move, bishop to d3. If bishop takes pawn now, his knight will be overwhelmed, and we saw how this game ended. Hikaru had nothing better than to retreat, lose 2 moves, and suddenly this white bishop came round, and as we saw, Hikaru resigned in this position, about to lose the key h-pawn. White about to make a new queen.
The Magnus touch in the endgames, and this is what we were talking about, that even if the position is level, it's just never over when you're playing against the world #1. And it is a game 1 down in the books, with Magnus taking his lead against Hikaru. Jan Nepomniachtchi with a convincing, dominating first round victory against Anish Giri. Alireza, Maxime, quite a battle which ended peacefully. And Dennis against Shakhriyar. We didn't get a chance to look at that one, but it was a level battle, a peaceful one that ended in a draw between these 2. And of course, the chess action continues on Chess.com. Join us for TwitchCon in Vegas from October 20th to 22nd. Mark your calendars. That is 20th to 22nd October. We are hosting an official Chess.com booth where you can play chess, win prizes, and meet some of your favorite chess creators. We are so excited to be taking part in the festivities and can't wait to see you all there. Use the command Vegas in chat for all the details. We will see you in Las Vegas. That is for later. Right now, it is all about Game 2 action as some of the players are playing a catch-up in their match. Hikaru, Anish need to win a game to level their matches. We will be back with Game 2 action in just a few moments.
It doesn't look like much, but neither would a Sicilian defense to the untrained eye. This is a performance enhancer. You don't see it? How about now? Manage your air quality, sharpen your performance, change the game with Air Things.
We're also excited to announce at this tournament that Chess.com is partnering with browser maker Opera. We are thrilled about this collaboration. It's something for chess lovers everywhere. It truly puts the game right at your fingertips, no matter where you are. And we did ask some of our players a lot of fun questions with the Opera AI. Take a look.
So first of all, thank you for taking the time to do an interview with Chess.com. But I have to tell you, we actually already did the interview with you using Opera's AI engine Aria. We asked it to answer questions as Anish Giri. And are you ready to be confronted with your answers?
Yes, definitely.
All right, so first question was, who is your biggest inspiration? And you answered, my biggest inspiration has to be the legendary chess player, Garry Kasparov.
Wow, so far so good, yeah, I think I would have said the same, actually.
What is your favorite time control? My favorite time control is classical time control.
I think it's the one that I had the best results in, probably by far, although hard to say. If I think of my style, I would expect myself to be strong and rapid, but somehow the results, don't show the same. I guess it's because, I've been sort of focusing on classical for just much too long.
What is your favorite opening? And the answer was, if I were to choose a favorite, it would be the Ruy Lopez.
I think the AI wasn't fed enough of my tweets where I'm constantly promoting my knight, of course.
And then we asked, who is your biggest rival? And the answer was players like Magnus Carlsen, Fabiano Caruana, and Vladimir Kramnik have been formidable opponents and have consistently challenged me in tournaments and matches.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's it's a decent answer because I've played with these players a lot of games. So yeah, good answer there, but a little too generic, I think.
What is your ultimate goal in chess? My ultimate goal in chess is to become the world chess champion.
Yeah, again, generic, but in this case it works very well. I think that's the, for me, I think that's the ultimate goal.
Have you reached your peak as a chess player? The answer was, I believe there is still room for further growth and improvement in my chess career. Would you agree?
Yeah. I feel I'm sort of improving as a chess player, for sure. But it's extremely challenging.
How would you describe your personality? So I'll sum up. It says composed, analytical, ambitious, diligent, respectful and sportsmanlike, and with a sense of humor.
Yeah, I hope the respectful and sportsmanlike was not the sign of the humor, but very, very, flattering answer, which is also fitting because I am not modest, and I didn't mention modesty.
What is your IQ? And the answer, and I hope you can give us the correct answer. The answer was, I don't have a specific IQ score to share with you.
But I remember I once had an online test that I wanted to do. I don't know why, probably some kind of spam came and maybe a 10-minute IQ test. Very, very nice. So, or 15. So anyway, very short. So I decided to complete it, and it went pretty smooth. And I got, I think, 139. Yeah.
Whoa.
And it said so. It said, okay, you are this good grade, smart, all that. And it showed that if you are above 140, you are a genius. And I have 139. So I think, okay, hang on a second. Let me do one more. Because I just want to cross the 140, right? That's all. Who doesn't want to cross these things, yeah? So I did one more. 136 came out. I did one more. 138 came out. I did one more. 133 came out. I did one more. 137 came out. 139. I kept doing them. It was already late. I couldn't cross the 140. Whatever I do, I just cannot be a genius.
What is the best thing about being you, Anish? And it answered, one of the best things about being me is the opportunity to pursue my passion for chess at the highest level. Chess is not just a game for me, it's a way of life.
Oh, very, very, very cool. Very cool. Very nice. I'm a little surprised it limits the answer to chess only. I would probably give a more general answer as well. To have a family myself now and all the friendships and, this blah, blah, I would mention for sure.
Do you know who hacked your Twitter account? And let's see if it gives an answer. No, it says, well, it's quite an unfortunate incident that my Twitter account was hacked. As of now, I don't have specific information about the individuals responsible for the hack.
Yeah, that is true. I did this police report back then, and I guess they treated it as just like another bike theft.
Yeah.
So it means nothing came from that.
Awesome. Thank you for answering, Anish. You just got AI'd.
The Opera AI seems to know Anish Giri pretty well, and you can download the first ever world chess-themed browser powered by Opera. It's on go.chess.com/opera. It's a really cool one with a Chess.com widget and a lot of fun extensions on that. And David Howell is supposed to be right here on the studio panel with his expert commentary, but while we were on break, he decided to have some fun on the Opera browser.
That's right, everyone. No, I'm not slacking off work, although I sometimes do. I'm actually checking out the Opera browser, and I'm really in the mood to play Bullet. I've been watching these greats, these world-class players play, so let's check out as I take you through a Bullet game using that Opera browser. This is my screen right now. I'm going to open it up. Here we go. Pretty cool, pretty slick. Chess.com opens up from the slide, so you can hide this easily if you're playing chess at work. I'm going to go in, play a game. I'm going to set up a Bullet game. Let's try and win quickly. Okay, I'm going to play 1 minute chess. No time for more. I'm going to also put it unrated so that I don't lose any rating points here. And who wants to play me? Someone, please play me. I just realized I'm going to change the settings here to make it against anyone. So if anyone's online on Chess.com, this is your opportunity. You can also play puzzles, of course, here. You can do anything you want. And wow, I've been put on the spot and nobody's playing me. Okay, here we've jumped in. I'm going to pre-move. I'm going to pre-move the whole game. And as you can see, this is a pretty cool service. Simon, what do you make of my moves?
Yeah, I like it. Reverse London system. It's got to be a good way to go. And yeah, pretty solid. Seems like you're doing all right.
Okay, I'm just going to play some dodgy moves here to try and open it up so we can finish before Magnus and Nakamura take over with their better chess. But right now, I'm liking my position. I'm just going to get my king to safety. This opponent's really strong. It's really frustrating. I thought I'd win this one nice and cool to show off.
Are you feeling the pressure, David?
I actually am. Super nervous right now. Okay, all my pieces at the party, centralized. I'm going to keep pre-moving, and I'm going to start going for checkmate. Oh, I think this guy's just too good. He's going to make me grind him down in some endgame.
Wow, and 40 seconds for both of you.
40 seconds. Wait, is it even my move? I'm going to pre-move. I'm just going to keep pre-moving. If he takes my queen, so be it.
Wow, and the action does continue with David's bullet game. He's still playing. I can see that happen while these two are also ready to start their second game. David, we're going to need you back here really soon.
I'm busy,
because
Tanya.
Magnus has started with the queen's pawn opening. He does lead 1-0, winning that first game against Hikaru. Wow, and knight c3 on the second move. Are we heading into a potential Jabava London here?
I think we are, yeah. I mean, this is the start of the Jabava London, and this move is it's becoming more theoretical as we're going on in time. And David, you played this as well.
And David, you're back. What happened to that bullet game? You got to tell us.
So I offered my opponent a draw because I wanted to rush back to the desk. My opponent rejected my draw offer, the cheek of it, so I had to resign.
Oh, dear.
Chess comes first. These guys come first.
Was it rated?
It was unrated, luckily.
Oh, okay, that's good.
And Simon, it's your system. You've produced courses on this one. You need to talk us through it, to the Jabava London system on the board.
It is, yeah. And Black's played the most critical move here, c5, which is very logical because the white knight is on a bad square. And now white has two main choices. So you can move the pawn in front of your king one square, or the more aggressive two squares up the board, was actually an idea that Hans Niemann, I think, first came up with. So it's going to be interesting to see what is played here. But generally, the evaluation of this position, if Black plays correctly, it should be even. And c5 is a very good way to meet the Jabava London. This is the more aggressive move. And I'm just trying to remember, I think it's knight takes pawn now, or pawn takes pawn are both pretty decent moves. Pawn takes e4, ways to equalize. This is the known equalizer theoretically, and it just shows that yeah, I mean, Magnus knows everything, right? So he's going to know this line.
Yeah, Magnus has played this himself with white as well, so he's clearly found a way to try and dampen things, trade off pieces. What has Hikaru got up his sleeve?
Wow, this one is pretty hot from the very start with the opening approach that these two have. We will jump back to this, but we're also getting moves in the Jan Nepomniachtchi Anish Giri matchup. Anish needs to switch it up from what happened in game one. He needs to forget about that. He starts with the white pieces, starts with the queen's pawn. What are you expecting, David? Will he try? And we're seeing a similar opening. I was going to say, will he try to score that victory in this one with white? Or is it about stop the bleeding?
I think it's firstly about stop the bleeding. You never want to lose a game with white. That would pretty much signal, I think, the end of the match. It's hard to recover psychologically from 2 games defeat. But no Jabava London. It's just a pure London system this time. And yeah, I think Anish Giri, this isn't part of his usual repertoire. So he's definitely got something up his sleeve. And we see the evaluation bar react already. Can white just snap off a pawn on the c5 square? What has Nepomniachtchi got up his sleeve? Remember, the last, or one of the most recent games he's played against the London system ended in defeat in his World Championship match against Ding. And yeah, Anish trying to maybe remind him of those traumatic moments.
Mind games.
Mind games already, yeah. I mean, this, again, must be theory, this queen move. Something that Nepo must have prepared, because his whole setup's become very popular and supposed to be a way to equalise with the black pieces against the London system. So, but pawn takes pawn, that's critical, because if you play pawn takes pawn here, if the black queen recaptures, then the white queen can dive in to the position. Is it some kind of sacrifice that Jan is trying to set up. This would be in his style, especially against someone like Anish. You want to try to get the initiative against Anish and try to keep it as tactical as you can. So that could be his idea. But Anish having a big think here. And if you haven't studied this pawn takes pawn already, you might be a little bit unsure whether you should play it or not, and maybe you'll play a safer option instead.
All right, well, this one, a lot more of a sane start, a more strategic London in this position that we've got. The other game that did end level in round 1, but was full of fireworks, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave now starts with the white pieces against Alireza Firouzja, both extremely aggressive, dynamic players. Expecting Maxime in this one to start with the king pawn?
I think so, yeah. I'm hoping for another exciting Sicilian, but OK. Alireza has gone for a much more solid setup, the Petrov here. And maybe he learnt his lesson from the last Champions Tour event where he tried the Sicilian against Magnus and it really backfired. And I think this is a wise approach from Alireza, trying to go for a more solid setup here.
Yeah, and remember, these guys know each other extremely well from the French national team. I think they've had training camps. They know each other's openings, preferences. Clearly, knight f6, the Petrov defense has got Maxime Vachier-Lagrave thinking, maybe not feeling comfortable. Definitely a shock because Firouzja rarely employs this opening. Then again, Vachier-Lagrave is one of the leading experts in 1e4. He also won a beautiful game against the Petrov in the play-ins for this tournament. So definitely kind of reasons for both sides to pause. It's a bit of a surprise here. We see a very symmetrical setup. Look at the kind of symmetry in the position, all the knights staring off against each other. We will most likely see some trades. And I think Vachier-Lagrave reacting to this surprise in a very safe way.
Yeah, it makes sense to play quite a safe setup. And when you have a symmetrical pawn structure, it all comes down to the pieces. So whose pieces are more active here? And White just trying to get his bits into the game, offering Black to double his pawns, which Black can do, but he'll get a lot of activity in return for that. And both those knights in the centre of the board, they look quite scary. So we do have a change of pawn structure. Black now has the better pawn structure. What is White's idea? Is he going to support his knight with a pawn, maybe? That looks like an interesting way to play, and he's got to try to justify the doubling of his pawns in this position.
The Petrov, a solid start, level opening, and the other match that's level. Let's jump over to Shakhriyar Mamedyarov against the youngest player of this season of the Champions Chess Tour 23 seasons, Denis Lazovic, who won a Division 2 and then went on to impress us in the Division 1 of the Julius Baer Generation Cup. He's already made it through to Toronto with these two spectacular performances. And in this one, he's going to be playing against Shak with the black pieces. We've been talking about the clash of styles between these two. What is it going to be with the white pieces? How is Shak going to try to get his kind of positions?
He's got to make it complicated because Denis is quite a classical player, even though he's so young. He really understands how to keep it safe and solid. But Mamedyarov is an expert at creating chaos on the board. So maybe something like the Trompovsky, some way to complicate, mess it up. And so far, we're seeing pretty standard stuff here, David.
Yeah, pretty standard stuff. The game has transposed into the Queen's Gambit declined. Black not trading off anything in the centre, just rock solid formation. Nothing too spicy yet, but Mamedyarov has kind of tricks up his sleeve. He often throws pawns forward on the king side towards the black king in the early days. But no, it's a very typical, topical kind of setup here for both players. White taking the space. Look at how White's advancing all the pawns on the queen side now. Got a nice pawn structure clamping down, but Black has no weaknesses at all, and Black will start chipping away at the pawn structure. And wow, at the least expected moment, Harry the H-pawn makes an appearance.
Yeah, this is the kind of move I expected from Mamedyarov, just to try and make it a more complicated game. I mean, it's not the normal move, and will he throw his G-pawn forward now? Let's hope so. He could really go for major complications with that move, because the last move that Denis played has created a bit of a hook. So if White can ever push his pawn to attack that one, it'd be great. And but back to sort of solid play on the queen side now.
Yeah, and here we see the main idea for Black in this opening. That bishop was terrible. Black's light square bishop trapped behind its own pawn chain. He's just trying to trade off and lessen the pressure on his position. And Mamedyarov says, OK, no strategic slow grind for you. I'm going to explode things, and this is a pawn sacrifice. throwing the b-pawn forward. He's trying to force black to capture, whereupon the white c-pawn will be a pass pawn. This game's getting crazy already.
First, he plays the Harry the H-pawn on one side of the board, and then we see a standoff on the queen side. If you do pick up the b5 pawn, I think, David, what you pointed out is the key moment that white can actually use that opportunity to advance ahead with the c-pawn, winning a tempo with c6 before recapturing on b5. The pawn can land itself on the 7th rank, so you really don't want that, which is why Denis Lazovic falls back with the bishop. So the tension is still on. We see some trades now on the queen side, but we've got to jump back just for a moment to the Magnus Hikaru game, because it is absolute madness in that one. The Magnus madness continues. Hikaru getting greedy. I'm doing the count here. Hikaru has an extra pawn, but look at that king in the center out in the open.
Yeah, white's king might live to regret this whole opening. Black does have the bishop pair. That being said, an extra pawn is an extra pawn, and if white survives the next few moves, Magnus won't be too happy. It was actually a complete role reversal, because after just 4 moves, Magnus was a clear pawn up, and he chose to give 2 pawns back to clarify the position. Let's do an action replay. This is a complicated position. We'll break it down, but just back here, we left it all the way after e4, knight takes e4, and Simon, as far as I know, the normal move is knight takes knight here.
That's right, yeah. Knight takes knight is what white normally plays. So what idea did Hikaru show? Knight b5. Okay, I've never seen that idea before. It kind of makes some sense, because you tried to force black's knight to go to a bad square, which I assumed it did now. The only way to stop the check, but you have given up a pawn. So very interesting idea from Hikaru, but how did it work out?
Yeah, white kicked the black knight back. The knight used this square. Maybe it could have gone another direction to be a bit safer. And after we saw a set of trades, we saw this position, b4, a really clever move. The black queen checking the white king, hitting the white bishop. So there's no time to actually go and capture this pawn. The white bishop would simply drop back and block. White would be a piece up. And so we see this position on the board. And Magnus has just played the move bishop to e7. He's getting ready to activate these pieces. Watch out for this bishop to maybe use this diagonal a bit later on, a really nice long diagonal. The other bishop might come this way to hit the white queen. White really has to catch up with development. I think this white knight has to move. And white's king really wants to go to safety. But as you mentioned, Simon, the fact that there's this laser vision, the white king cut off from castling kingside, that might be a long-term problem.
Yeah, it is the king's safety, and black's bishop should always be quite good compensation as well in the long term. So I'd certainly favour black's position. Interesting opening idea from Hikaru, but Magnus has reacted very well, I feel, here. And white's got to somehow get his king to safety in this position, which is not going to be entirely easy.
Yeah, definitely don't castle queenside. There's no safety to be found on that flank. I think that's the one thing Hikaru most likely won't do, unless he's playing for content. Should we do a vote whose position we prefer? Because this one, evaluation bar says 50-50.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go black, because I always like having the safer king, and black's king is safer here, definitely.
And you're sure that has nothing to do with the fact that Magnus is playing black? Not that you picked Magnus for every tournament in the tour, Simon.
Well, you know, I am a bit of a Magnus fan, but I mean, it is the Jabbar of London as well, so that kind of evens it out. And also for my eyes, a new opening idea. So I would have to say that kind of evens it out. I just like black's position. I like the safer king. What about you, Tanya?
I'm a pawn grabber. I do agree that it does feel a little unsafe for white with the king on the center. Also, really no direct path to actually go shock castle. You can develop your knight to e2, but that still doesn't help. You block the diagonal, but the king will be required to defend that knight on e2. So it doesn't really help the cause. But I still like white's position. I don't really see a way for black to get to white's king. And that last move, a4, he is threatening to go b5 next to block that diagonal. I think it is definite compensation for Magnus, but I'll pick white here. David, you're the...
I'll break the tie.
Yeah, you're the tiebreaker.
I'll say white, because I picked Hikaru at the beginning of the show, and I don't want to back down.